Hello knitters, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to revisit my winter knitting plans and see what I've accomplished so far this season. So grab your knitting and let's dive in. Hello, welcome to Hattie Knits Along. My name is Allison, but my friends call me Hattie, and I'm a knitter living in the Pacific Northwest. On this channel, I like to talk about all things knitting, what I'm working on, what you're working on, and what we are currently nerding out about. So if that sounds like something you're into, I hope you subscribe so you never miss a video. Back in December, I filmed a video called My Winter Knitting Plans, and you can check it out here if you haven't seen it yet. But basically, I broke down my plans into projects I already had yarn for and projects I didn't have yarn for, but that I was really interested in. So I'm just going to quickly list those projects so we can see where I'm at so far this season. So there were 4 projects that I already had yarn for that I was looking forward to knitting. The first was the Easy V sweater by Caitlin Hunter. The second was the Frame Your Face cowl by Andrea Mowry. And the third was the Deep Winter hat by Wool and Pine Designs. And the fourth was just socks in general because I knew I was going to be getting my Farmer's Daughter Fibers Sock Squad yarn every month, and I wanted to make sure that I stayed on top of them every month and didn't let that yarn pile up. There were 5 other projects that I had my eyes on that I didn't have yarn for yet. So I wasn't sure if I was going to get to those or not, but I will list those as well because I think they will be relevant later on. The first was the Mozart Pullover by Caitlin Hunter, and the second was the Sideline Wrap by Brienne Moody. The third was the Six of Daisies cardigan by Dagan. The fourth was the Avenue vest by Tori Knits NYC. And the fifth was the Gushy Garter hat by Park Williams. So those were my winter knitting plans, or at least the projects that I listed in that video. And I bet you're very curious to see how I followed along. If you've been following along on this journey, you have definitely seen some of these projects come up in my past videos. I haven't talked recently about my current whips, so you might be surprised on what I've cast on and what I have not. First, I'm going to talk about the projects that I have made that were in line with the plans that I made back in December. And then later on, I will talk about the projects that weren't necessarily in those plans that I also did. So the major one that you very much know about is the Easy V sweater. If for some reason you haven't seen that video, there's a video all about the Easy V sweater. I knit that up in a few weeks and I really enjoyed it. So make sure you check out that video because I list out all the details about the yarn I chose, the size I made, any modifications I made to the pattern. But I'm so happy that I accomplished that because that was a lot of yarn that I bought and I really wanted to make sure that I knit that sweater, and I'm so happy I did because it's a staple in my wardrobe already. The next project that I completed from my winter knitting plans is the Deep Winter hat by Wool and Pine. So I have not shown this on the podcast yet. You can take a look at it. This is a really fun cabled hat. Lots of cables. And it has this very generous 3-inch twisted rib brim on the bottom. I'm really happy with the way it turned out. I knit the adult small size, and I can't remember how many sizes there are. There's like 4 or 5 sizes, I think, for this one. So pretty size inclusive, including like youth sizes. But yeah, this fits great. I used the recommended yarn, which was Farmer's Daughter Fibers Bear Paw DK in the color Mars of Us. And it's this really beautiful rosy color, which you will see might be a theme in this video today. Bear Paw DK is a really cool yarn. It's 60% merino, 20% yak, and 20% silk. So it has this really lovely drape. And when I first was planning this, I wasn't sure how that drape would work out in a beanie and also in a cabled beanie. I was a little worried that it would lose some of the stitch definition and also the structure that I would want my beanie to have. I don't really love having super slouchy beanies. And in the pictures on the pattern page, it didn't look super slouchy. It looked pretty structured. So I wanted to try it out and see how it worked up. And yeah, I think it has a beautiful shine to it from the silk and the yak. And obviously it has a lot of drape, but it holds that stitch definition very well. And this is already blocked, and I think the cables came out really nicely after I blocked them. And then when I wear it, I think it feels like a nice snug beanie. Not super slouchy. I can unfold the brim and then it would be more slouchy, but that's not really the look I'm going for. So yeah, I actually haven't gotten to wear this yet because I started it. As some of you may know, I went to Disneyland last week with my family and I wanted a project to bring with me. So I actually knit most of this ribbing on my trip, waiting in line for rides and on the airplane and various downtimes that we had. So that was a perfect project for that because it was very small and portable and I didn't need a lot of equipment, and I knew going in I wasn't even going to attempt the cables, but honestly, with the amount of free time I had, the 3 inches of ribbing was about all that I could accomplish, and I didn't really have time to even start something else or think about starting the cables. So it worked out pretty good. And then when I got home, I finished the cables and in a couple of days, and it wasn't too bad at all. And it was fun to knit. Definitely, something you have to pay attention more to, but the one thing I will say about the pattern is I always read my patterns digitally. I don't print them out. And the frustrating thing was that I was reading it from the chart, and the key for the chart, the legend for the chart, was not on the same page as the chart layout. It was like 2 or 3 pages before the chart. So I had to scroll back and forth quite often, and that was not ideal. I think usually when there is a big chart in a pattern, next to the chart is the legend. And that makes a lot of sense. So you can just easily go back and forth. Even if you were to print this pattern, you would have to have printed at least those 2 pages so that you could read the legend and the chart and have them side by side. I think one of the reasons why they didn't do that in the pattern was because they listed all of the chart directions row by row written out as well. But to me, that is so much more confusing than trying to read the chart. I know everybody's brains work differently, but I would have liked to see those written instructions like maybe on the next page and then the legend next to the chart. But let me know what you think down below. Have you ever knit from a chart that had the legend on another page, and did that work for you? Or I don't know. I would like to know if that was just me being weird. So that's my deep winter hat. It's been pretty warm since we got home, so I haven't really been reaching for any beanies. In fact, I've been reaching for my baseball cap because it's been sunny too, but we'll see. March can be an interesting month weather-wise here in the Pacific Northwest. We've had snow in March several times in the 5 years that I've lived here, so I'm not holding my breath that spring has sprung yet. So there might be some need for this. Otherwise, I will keep it because I'm definitely going to wear it next winter, and it's a very cute hat. So, also this winter, I have been keeping up with my Sock Squad yarn, which has been great. In fact, even though I've only done 2 months of Sock Squad, I have knit 3 pairs of socks so far this year. So, the first pair you have seen already, and that is this pair from January. It's the Colorwork Cuff Club from Summer Lee. Let's do this. So that was a really cute little design, and I loved the yarn colors for that month from Farmer's Daughter Fibers. So in February, I worked on a test knit for Alicia Plummer, and I believe the socks are going to be called Grandpa socks, but don't quote me on that. She hasn't released the pattern yet, but I wanted to talk a little bit about them because she should be releasing them in the next week or two. So you can look out online for when she releases that pattern. But I first used my Farmer's Daughter Fibers Sock Squad yarn from February, and it turned, it's very cute. It's a very slouchy sock. It has this really cool stitch pattern, just knits and purls, like kind of a broken rib kind of a thing. A ribbed heel flap here, and then a gusset. And she wanted you to roll the cuffs, so that's really cute. Originally, when I signed up to do the test knit, I saw that she had designed the socks in Retro Saria's Mondim yarn, which is a sock yarn, but it's a non-superwash merino yarn that's just 100% merino. No, actually, it's not merino. It's 100% Portuguese wool with no nylon in it, so just wool. And I was really intrigued by that because I haven't used that yarn before, but I know it is very popular for not just sock knitting, but lots of different things. But I wanted to try it out in socks. And I also thought it would be fun to knit my husband a pair of socks because I did knit him a pair of slippers over the holidays, but I have never knit him a pair of socks, and I wasn't sure how he would feel about wearing knit socks, but so far he's very much loved them. So here's the color I got. As you can see, I told you it was going to be like this rosy red theme today, but look at these cute socks. The Retro Saria Mondim yarn, it is such a lovely texture, and it holds the texture of the stitch pattern so well. Here's the ribbing on the heel flap. I'm really interested to see how it holds up for him because, one, I've never knit him socks before, so I'm not sure how knit socks would hold up for him in general. But yeah, having no nylon in them, I'm interested to see how that works for him. And he really likes them. He's only worn them once so far, but he did really like them. He said they felt a little bulkier in his shoes than his normal cotton socks do, but other than that, he enjoyed wearing them and didn't mind a little bit of extra bulk. This pattern by Alicia Plummer was really fun. It was my first test knit, and I had a great time doing that and trying out that on these two very different yarns. This one's a typical sock yarn that is, I forget exactly the percentages, but maybe like 75% wool and 25% nylon and superwash merino, and then this being just 100% wool. You can tell that they have different drapes to them, different stitch definitions, and it was a fun experiment to knit those back to back with one another and see what the different yarns do. I still have about this much left of my Mondim, which maybe for some color work, if I needed to pop in some red, I could do that, but it's not very much yarn because these were long. These were, I think, a 7-inch leg, so a long leg, which is nice and cozy. those were all the things I finished so far this winter. Now there's 2 things that were part of my plans that I have actually already cast on, so I would like to share those. So the first one is the Avenue Vest by Tori Knits NYC. After I finished my deep winter hat, I really wanted to cast this on. I cast this on Thursday, and today is Sunday morning, and this is how far I've gotten already, so it flies by. Again, we are doing this lovely rosy theme. So let me tell you a little bit about the yarn I'm using. So this is the ends of my first balls of yarn, and I'm holding 2 yarns together. So this is the first one. These are both by Tumalo Fiber, which is out of Bend, Oregon. And this one is called Ghost Ranch. Is that what it's called? No. That's a spin cycle colorway. This is called Ghost Town Sport. It's 100% merino wool, and the colorway is bark. And it's this lovely gray with like lots of specks of red and yellow in it. So I thought I would pair that with another Tumalo Fiber yarn, and this is their Swanky Fluff. Or is it Swanky Floof? The Ghost Town Sport. I just looked this up, and on Ravelry it said it was 100% merino, but on this ball band, can you see it? It says that it is 100% Shiniko wool, non-superwash. Is Shiniko wool a type of merino wool? I do not know. If you know, let me know in the comments. So, this is Swanky Floof. As you can see, it is very floofy. And this yarn is, let's see, 13% cashmere, 53% baby alpaca, and 34% silk. So you got the cashmere and the baby alpaca adding to the floofiness of it, and then the silk to hold it all together and make it strong. And it is the color Beetroot, which is just a really beautiful rosy color. And you can see very similar specks of that red in the sport weight wool. So I decided to hold them together, and I'm getting this really awesome marled look in my fabric. But you can still, if you look closely, I don't know if this is going to show up on camera, but you can still see little spots of yellow and things like that when there is those flecks in the yarn. I was wondering if it would just be all red when I held them together, but no, it's very marled. And I'm loving the way it looks. It looks really unique. I decided not to swatch. And I decided to knit a size D, which is a 46-inch bust, which I believe is a little wider than I normally would want. But I also know this pattern calls for a worsted weight yarn, and I'm holding a sport weight and a lace weight together, which is not quite a worsted weight, but because of the floof, it definitely adds to the thickness of the yarn to make it a little fluffier and take up a little more space. So I did think about that. But I'm using the recommended needle size, which is a size 8, and I'm pretty spot on with my gauge so far. So I actually wouldn't have minded if I was a little bit under the gauge numbers, because I am knitting a bigger size to accommodate for my thinner yarn. But I think it'll be really cute no matter what. It doesn't look giant. And I don't think it's going to grow a ton when I block it because of the nature of the wool. So, let's see. Yeah, I think it looks like a good size. I have not tried it on yet. It feels very soft, and I decided to do the V-neck version. There is a crew neck version, but I really loved how deep the V was. I thought that looked really neat. And other than that, I'm in the plain stockinette part of the pattern right now. So this will be good potato chip knitting that I could take with me. It's not a huge project, so I can take it with me places and work on it. And I think I'll have this done pretty quick. So I just have to do the rest of the body and then the ribbing on the bottom and the arms, and so that should go by pretty quickly. The construction of this is very fun. You start by casting on the back neck stitches, and then you build out the back a little bit. You shape the armholes a little bit, and then you pick up stitches on the shoulders to knit one panel of the V-neck and then the other panel of the V-neck. Then you join those two panels in the middle and build out the front a little bit, shape the armholes, and then you join everything in the round, and now it's just knitting in the round. So there's quite a bit of flat knitting at the beginning, but it goes by really fast. I mean, these V-neck panels are not very wide, so going back and forth takes no time at all. And yeah, I'm excited to see this build out, and I'm excited to have it in my wardrobe because, as you can see, I am very much loving this colorway right now. The other pattern that I have started from my winter knitting plans is the Mozart Pullover. The Mozart Pullover is a pattern by Caitlin Hunter. It is all over cables and lace, and it's just a beautiful, drapey, kind of fuzzy sweater. And the yarn that she designed it in is called Double Merino by Knitting for Olive, and it's a chainette worsted weight yarn. It's 100% merino, but it's got a lot of fluff to it, especially because of that chainette construction of the yarn. And it is discontinued, so you cannot buy this yarn anymore. And she listed a few different possibilities. One of the, a few different alternatives that you can use since you can't buy this yarn anymore. And one of them was Fluff by the Wandering Flock, which I am in love with and I would love to knit with, but it is pretty pricey, and I was trying to find it locally and I couldn't find enough to make the sweater. And I've just been researching different options. I've always had it in my head that I want to knit this sweater. I'm just trying to figure out what yarn to use for it. And then Pearl Soho had a sale a few weeks ago, 25% off all their yarn. And I thought that it might be a good thing to look for yarn that would work for this sweater during that sale. So I ended up purchasing their Note yarn, which is 80% merino and 20% alpaca. It is not chainette, it's plied. In fact, there's quite a few plies in this yarn. I'm not sure how many. There's 6 plies in this yarn, so it's a lot of plying. But it's very soft and it's pretty lightweight and fluffy, and it was on sale and not that expensive for a sweater's quantity of yarn in terms of what I'm willing to spend. So of course, this is a very different yarn than what Caitlin used, and I also know that Caitlin's has a very loose gauge that I have trouble meeting a lot of the time. So I decided I would swatch for this sweater. This is a very new thing for me. I don't do this very often at all, but I think for this it makes sense. I want to make sure that I'm at least in the right ballpark here. So I immediately sized up the needle for my swatch, and I have not blocked it yet. But here's my swatch. I just did this last night. It's such a pretty pattern. Obviously I didn't do it perfectly. I know there's a mistake there. But this is good practice for getting the pattern done as well. And once I block it, I will measure it and see how close I am to her gauge estimates. But I think I'm pretty close from what I've measured so far. And so I think I will keep that sized up needle size. And I do think this yarn will work for this pattern. I like the definition of the stitches, but it's still pretty fluffy and lightweight. And my daughter saw the giant holes. She's like, "Are you gonna wear something underneath that?" It's like, probably. I don't know. We'll see what it looks like. But yeah, I'm excited to officially cast on this project and happy with this. It's not red, but in my head, I always envisioned this sweater in blue. The fluff from Wandering Flock they have the sky blue color that is gorgeous. And this is not quite that color. I think it's called Vintage Celadon. It's not quite that beautiful sky blue color that the Wandering Flock does, but I think it's still a very pretty color blue and not a color that I really have in my wardrobe. So I like to mix things up and not always have the same colors all the time. There were a couple of projects that I completed this winter that were not part of my winter plans video, but I did already have the yarn for them, so I think they still kind of count that I accomplished something with the yarn that I already had. The first one I already talked about in a video, and you can click on it up here. That was a really fun beret made out of an Aran weight Surrey alpaca yarn, so it was like very fluffy, and I had a lot of fun. I knit that up just in a weekend when I went on a little road trip, and it ended up being a little big for my head. I have a tiny head, guys. Especially like circular around this part is very small. And a lot of times I end up wearing kids' hats. In fact, my daughter's head, I'm pretty sure she's 8, and I'm pretty sure her head is about the same size as mine, if not maybe even bigger than mine. We can definitely share hats. My mom has a bigger head than me, and she liked the beret, so I happily gifted that to her, and she's been wearing it around town. My friends have said, "Oh, I've seen your beret on your mom at the co-op," which is fun. So I'm happy that she likes that, and she's getting some use out of it. The second design I knit up in a couple of days. I just needed like a palette cleanser, and that is the Pressed Flowers Kerchief. Here it is. So a few months ago, I bought the yarn for this. The Pressed Flowers Kerchief is a free pattern by Amy Christoffers, and you probably know of the Pressed Flowers designs. She has many different designs in this same stitch pattern. It's a mosaic knit, meaning you slip stitches and you just work with one color yarn at a time. So it's a very simple thing to knit, but fun and kind of addicting, especially, yeah, this size and this stitch pattern, this part right here. I could just do that all day. It was very fun. So she designed it as a collaboration with Hobby Yarns. They're from Denmark, I believe. And they have this new yarn that was a collaboration with Pom Pom magazine called Garland, and it is 70% cotton yarn and 30% alpaca. So it's actually like a chainette construction of cotton yarn with the alpaca. So the cotton yarn is white, and then the alpaca is colored, and it's like blown into the chainette. So it's very fluffy, but it has this kind of marled look to it because the white cotton core is in there, and then the fluffy alpaca is the actual dyed part. So the colors I used for this are Chipmunk, which is the kind of tan color, and then Cosmos, which is the red color. One of the reasons I wanted to cast this on, besides I already had the yarn for it and I love the pressed flowers design, is that I wanted to check out this garland yarn as a possibility for my Mozart pullover because it is that chainette construction and very fluffy. But honestly, I don't really love this yarn. I found it to be pretty stiff. Now holding it here, it does look quite drapey, but in my hands, it feels like cotton yarn. It feels pretty stiff and not something cozy that I would want to have a whole sweater of. Also, I feel like it's not very lightweight. Cotton can be kind of heavy, and I don't know. With a cabled and laced sweater, I would want it to be lightweight, and yeah, I don't know. So I'm glad I tried this out because this yarn is very budget friendly. So if it works for you, great. I think it's a great choice for, budget wise. But I also think like, yeah, it has no give to it. I actually added extra flowers to this pattern than what the pattern called for. And I still think it came out too small to do much with. Like, I can barely even tie it around my neck here. And I just don't really love the look of it. I wish it was a lot bigger. You only use 2 balls of yarn. They're 50-gram balls. So it's not a lot of yarn, and my daughter really liked it. So I gifted it to her, and I think it fulfilled a couple of things for me. It fulfilled them wanting to try out this yarn, and also it fulfilled doing that really fun stitch pattern, which honestly really makes me want to just cast on a pressed flowers shawl. So you might see that in my future because I love this stitch pattern so much and it never gets old. Well, we have 3 more weeks of winter left. So I guess a little less than 3 weeks, but I know that I have time to still work on some of my winter knitting plans. I do plan on finishing my Avenue vest before winter is over. And I also would like to get a good way through my Mozart pullover. So be on the lookout for those. I also just received my March Farmer's Daughter Fibers yarn, Sock Squad yarn. So this is what it looks like this month. It's a very variegated orangey yellow yarn with this mini skein of blue. And it's their Highwood sock base, which is 80% superwash merino and 20% nylon. And the color is Inky Snake. This year's Sock Squad yarn is all inspired by the Landon She illustrations. And so this is Inky Snake for March. So you definitely get that yellow and orange and then that bright blue color, which is really pretty. Hold them up together. Yeah, they go very well together. But I have no idea what I'm going to knit with these socks. I just got them yesterday. I haven't really had much time to process the colorways and the design choices that I have for that. So I will definitely cast these on soon though, because I want to have finished my socks by the end of the month. And there's one more pair of socks that I'm really excited to knit, and that is the Sweet Squish socks by Jessie Maid. And I have this really cool yellow yarn from Malabrigo. It's so soft and squishy. It's 100% superwash merino, and I just think it'll be the perfect yarn for those sweet squish socks. So I'm very excited to cast those on. I don't know if those will be done in the winter or maybe early spring, but I'm really inspired by this color and want those socks. So I'll probably cast those on soon. Next week, I'm going to work on my spring knitting plans video, so make sure you subscribe so that you can stay tuned for that video. Thank you everyone for your patience last week when I was busy traveling and didn't have an opportunity to upload a new video, but I appreciate all of you for coming here week after week and leaving comments and subscribing and just being generally amazing people. So keep on doing that, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Happy knitting. Bye.